All movable items, all movable items convey tumah when they are thick as a gold. Red Tarfon says, may I bury my children if this is not a mistaken ruling, which I listened to, heard, and misunderstood. A farmer was once walking with his goat on his shoulder, when one end formed an ohel over a grave. The Gachamim declared him tummy because the utensils sheltered a corpse. Like Yukiva said, I will amend the ruling so that the words of the sages remain valid. All movable objects convey tumah upon the person who carries them when they are as thick as a goat upon themselves, even if they are very thin, and upon another person as other utensils when they are a handbreadth wide. How so? If a spindle was embedded in the wall and there was a piece of corpse half the size of an olive beneath it and another piece half the size of an olive above it, even though they are not one above the other, the spindle is tummy. Thus, it spreads tumah onto itself no matter what size it is. If a person who sells earthenware pots was passing by a grave with a carrying pole on his shoulder, one end on which forms a roof over a grave, the utensils on the other end, the pole remains tahor. However, if the carrying pole is a handbreadth wide, the utensils become tameh. Mounds that are near either a town or a road are tameh, whether they are new or old. However, concerning the distant ones, those that are new are tahar, where the old ones are tameh. What is meant by near? Within 50 cubits, and what is considered old, and that are 60 years old, and they are words of Reb Meir. The Yehuda says near means that no other is closer, and old means that no one remembers it.
Yeah, the reason why these mounds are considered tameh is because there's a concern that that a woman went and had a miscarriage over there and buried the baby on the quiet.
Right.
So that's the so there's as far why the newer ones people would have noticed, where the older ones are like, okay, they've been there for such a long time, and nobody's noticing them. The road might have changed direction, I guess.
Okay.
So anyway, carry on.
Someone who finds a corpse lying in its usual manner for the first time may remove it, along with the surrounding earth. And someone who finds two corpses may remove them along with the surrounding earth. Someone who finds three corpses that are between 4 and 8 cubits apart has located a district of graves. Once it has been determined to be a district of graves, he must search an additional area of 20 cubits. If he finds even one grave within 20 cubits, he must search from it an additional 20 cubits, for there is a basis for concern. For if he had found only this grave initially, he would be required to take it along with the surrounding earth.
Okay. So the idea being that if you find that that three bodies have been buried in the same location, then this is obviously an old graveyard, and the bodies have got the right to stay where they are. Whereas if you find just one or two bodies, then and you need to do some construction over there, then okay, you pick them up, you bury them somewhere else, and you move on. But you can't do that if the area is belongs to the graveyard.
Okay.
Okay. Now, in that situation, Mishna Dalet, once you're in that situation where you found some graves, now you've got to bring in the inspector to come and check just exactly how far this graveyard extends. Okay, habodek, bodek ama alama. So he checks every single ama. He's got to dig down and make sure that there aren't any more bodies. Umeniach ama. So he digs an ama square, and then leaves an ama, and then and like in this way, like every second ama, he's digging an ama hole, so to check for any further bodies. Or libsula. Either if he gets to bedrock or if he gets to virgin soil, and there's probably a way to determine what's virgin soil. I'm not an expert in this field, but it's probably got a certain look where you can see this soil has never been turned over before. Hamotzi es ha'afar mimakom tuma. So if somebody takes the sand out of the place of tuma, ochel bedimor, he is allowed to eat. Dimor is I'm not sure why they use this particular term, but Kahati explains that this is there's a truma for a kohen. So if the guy is busy digging, if he's busy digging and inspecting and doesn't find anything, then this soil is okay. It doesn't make him tameh. Much like unlike the base of press, which we're going to get into as well today. But he's first of all, the Kohen shouldn't be doing this. He makes the point. Not that the Kohen is allowed to be going and digging over here, but Naniach, there was a Kohen who broke the halacha, and he was acting as an inspector to see if there were any graves over here, and he didn't find anything. Is he allowed to eat truma? Yes.
No.
He's not allowed to eat his truma. Okay, because this soil doesn't make him tameh. However, hamafaker bagal eino ochel bedimo. However, if somebody is working on a mound where it's suspected that somebody is buried underneath this mound of stones, and we're not sure if he's alive or dead, he is not allowed to eat truma because
No.
there's a safek if the person underneath is dead.
Right.
So from that safek, he is not allowed to eat the truma. Carries on the inspector in Mishnah Hey. Haya bodek higia lenachal. He on his path, he hits a point where there's a stream or a shlulis or a lake or a derech harabim or a public highway. Mafsik, there's no need for him to go further on. Well, actually, there are two different ways of reading this. One is that he's done. He doesn't. We don't have to be concerned that the graveyard carries on the other side of the stream or the lake or the highway. Another opinion is that okay, you just don't have to check there. But if you're still within the limits of the area, how far? 20 amas. So if the 20 amas continues on the other side, then he would have to go over there and check if there's anything on that side. So there are two different opinions on that in the Gemara. Is it in the Gemara? Let me just check. Yesh Mefarsh. No, it's not. It's not in the Gemara. It's Mefarshim in the Tosefta that he skips over that area but carries on the other side. Okay. Sadesh and Nergu ba harugim. Now, what about if it's not a graveyard, but it's a battlefield, and there are lots of bones from bodies of people who fell in battle? Okay, milaket etzem etzem v'hakol tahor. Then he may pick up all the bones. He can clear up the bones, give them a burial somewhere else, and the ground can be used, developed, whatever he needs to do with it.
Is that a kiddush?
Huh?
A chiddush that he could do that because the bones were there.
Yeah, of course but of course it's a chiddush. But the difference being that a battlefield is not a graveyard. Graveyard was given to dead people. This is their place. The battlefield is where they fell. Okay.
Okay.
That's the big difference over there. And also that he doesn't have to pick up the dirt underneath them, because the tavusa is also part. Because if you buried somebody in a grave and you need to rebury them, you need to take some of the earth underneath, because some of the corpse rot will have got into the ground underneath, and that has to be scooped up and reburied with them wherever they're going to. Okay. Now again, this is exactly the case I just said. So if somebody has got a grave in his field, he knows that his grandfather was buried there, but for whatever reason he needs to rebury him somewhere else. Okay, what does he have to do? Melaket etzem etzem. Wait, hold on. Did I get that wrong? Kol tahor. I was expecting him to have to take the tavusa. Could go on. Shehayalo kever michutz lesadehu v'nifcha.
That's what Shimon, which we're talking about. Shimon.
So what happened here? What happened is there was a grave on the outer edge of his field. Okay, and there was a landslide or something, and part of the grave started encroaching on his field. So all he has to do, because this is not, it wasn't the place of the grave. This is his field, and he's entitled to take everything off. He just has to pick up any bones that fell into his field. He picks them up, moves them somewhere else, and his field is fine. Okay, that's like etzem. Borshem matilim lesocho nefalim or harugim. Now, let's say that the goyim had built a pit where they dumped miscarriages or people who had fallen in battle. Again, melaket etzem v'hakol tahor. Just take the bones out and everything is fine, because that's not considered an established grave or graveyard. Rabbi Shimon disagrees. He says, "Im his kino lekever mitchila yesh lo tavusa." So if it was designated as a grave, then there's tavusa. Then you have to also dig up some of the earth as well.
That's what you were talking about before. That's what you were talking about before.
having to dig up the tevusa to rebury it somewhere else. The halacha does not follow Rabbi Shimon. Okay, so now this segues quite nicely into the halachas of the Beis Pras. Okay, the Beis Pras is the field where there was a grave, and somebody decided that they were going to just plow through the grave, and they went and plowed through it, and now we don't know where the grave is, and we don't know if any bones got crushed up and left around the field. So we're not worried about flesh because flesh is decomposed. We're only worried about bones. And bones, if you just to recall the halachas of bones and tumah, is that a bone that's at least a barley corn in size conveys tumas mace, but it does not create tumas ohel. In order for bones to create a tumas ohel, you need a rova. You need a rova kav. Right? It's a gesunter shear from the majority of a body or whatever. So it's a big quantity of bones that's going to create tumas ohel. So we're immediately going to know from the beginning that a Beis Pras is not going to create ohel tumah. Okay, but it is, but it is nonetheless. There's a chashash of bones around there which do convey 7-day tumah by touch and by carrying, and by moving. Okay, so here is the opening line of this is how the Beis Pras gets created. A choresh is a kever. Somebody went and plowed over a grave. Hareze ose Beis Pras. So that is what creates a Beis Pras. Ad kama hu ose. So how far? So he's just motoring away with his plow and going like hundreds of meters down the field. How far do we create this Beis Pras? Okay, melo ma'ana. So it's called melo ma'ana mea ama. So the how do we translate that? It's the shear of a ditch that one plows with in one general plow movement, which is 100 amas. Approximately 50 meters. Okay, base arba seim, and that is an area of 40 se'ah of land. So it goes.
What do you have? 4. I have 4 se'ah.
Arba seim. I beg your pardon. 4 se'ah. Correct. Thank you very much for correcting me. So it works. So also in the width. So both in length and width, it's 100 amas, and the area that's enclosed by that is the area that you could sow 4 se'ah of crops, which is approximately 5,000 about 5,000 square amas.
She disagrees.
Wait, hold on. I beg your pardon. I'm looking at the wrong. I'm looking at the wrong thing. It's 10,000 amas. Right. It's 100 by 100. Okay. Rabbi Yossi Omer Beis Chamesh. Rabbi Yossi says no. It's slightly larger. It's the size of 5 se'ah. What's his logic for that? Let's see if he says why. He doesn't give a reason in Kati as to why Rabbi Yossi disagrees. The morad uvemale. Okay, if it's now, what happens if you're on a downward slope or an upward slope? Because if you plowed over the grave, it's much more likely that the bones are going to roll downhill. Okay, so so if you're not sure how far it would go, you measure a rova karshinim. You take a rova kav of vetch seeds onto there's a dispenser on the plow. So when a person's plowing, then the seeds get to put.
Right.
Okay, so you put them into put in this rova of karshinim onto the plow until the place. Ad makom sheyitzmechu shlosha karshinim ze b'tzad zeh, and you follow the path over there until let me just read this from Kahati actually. Okay, Okay, so then you push the plow, and the seeds start falling until the place where you get to where you basically run out of seeds. שכן מתחילה על ידי המורד או על ידי נינו המחרישה ועל יסון נופלים גרעינים הרבה לתלם המחרישה והולכים ומתמעטים במקום שנופלים מהם בפעם האחרונה שלושה גרעינים צחופים. So the last place where you have 3 seeds falling together, that's where you draw your line and say, okay, that's the end of the base of press. Okay, so that's how you measure. That's how you measure when you're going uphill or downhill, because the plow will obviously move more easily downhill, and the seeds will extend further in that direction. That's how you measure it there. Rabbi Yossi Omer b'morad v'lo b'maleh. He says that the base of press will only form in the downhill direction. He said because if somebody plowed uphill, then the bones aren't going to come with it. The bones are going to want to go downhill. And do we see any halacha over here? I don't. Mistama, the halacha will not follow him unless we say it does. So I'm guessing not. Okay, and that's it for base of press for today.
All right.
Back to Yud Gimel Gimel.
A hole in the door should be measured with the size of a fist. They're the words of Rebbe Akiva. Rebbe Tarfon says the hole is measured with a square handbreadth. If the carpenter left a spare at the space at the bottom or top, and he did not complete the door or the wind, open the door, the hole is measured with the size of a fist. There is no minimum size for a hole that is made for a stick, a sword, or a lamp. According to Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel says a square handbreadth. If a hole was made to be a peephole to speak with his friend or for other uses, the minimum size is a square handbreadth. The following items reduce the opening to less than a handbreadth. Less than an olive-sized piece of flesh reduces the opening to the source of tumah is a quarter of a cob of bone. A piece of bone smaller than a barleycorn reduces the opening of the source of tumah is an olive-sized piece of corpse flesh. Less than an olive-sized piece of corpse flesh. Less than an olive-sized piece of corpse flesh. Piece of carcass, less than a lentil-sized piece of sheretz, and less than an egg-sized piece of food, grains covering the window, a thick spider web, the carcass of a kosher species of bird that was not designated for food, the carcass of a non-kosher species of bird that was designated for food but was not rendered capable of contracting tumah, or was rendered capable of contracting tumah but was not designated for food.
Okay. And beginning of Ohalos Aleph Daled.
People and utensils both become tummy from a corpse. People have a stringency that utensils do not have, and utensils have a stringency that people do not have. When a utensil touches a corpse, three utensils will become a tummy in turn after the first utensil touches a corpse, whereas when a person becomes tummy by touching a corpse, only 2 will become tummy. People have a stringency that utensils do not have. When a person is in the middle, there can be 4 persons and their utensils that become tummy in succession. But when there is no person in the middle, there can only be 3 stages of contact. People in clothing both become tummy from a zav. People who have a stringency that clothing does not have, and clothing have a stringency that people do not have. A person who touches a zav renders clothing tummy, whereas clothing that touches a zav does not render another clothing tummy. Clothing has a stringency that people do not have, and clothing that carries a zav renders a person tummy, whereas a person who carries a zav does not render tummy and another person tummy. A person does not convey corpse tumah until his soul departs, even if he is fatally wounded or even if he is moribund. Similarly, he still binds his dead brother's wife for Yubim, releases her from Yubim, entitles his wife to eat truma, and disqualifies her from eating truma. Similarly, domesticated and wild animals do not convey truma until they have died, their heads were severed. They are tummy even if they are still moving convulsively. The movements are like the severed tail of a lizard that is moving convulsively. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Aleph Gimel. In what case are these words saved? With obligatory pairs of birds offerings and voluntary birds offerings which mingle together, but with obligatory pairs of bird offerings which mingle with each other, with 1 pair for the woman, 1 pair for that woman, 2 pairs for this woman, and 2 pairs for that woman, or 3 pairs for this woman and 3 pairs for that woman. Half of the mingled birds are valid or be offered, and half of the birds are invalid to be offered. If, however, there was 1 pair of obligatory bird offerings for this woman and 2 such pairs for that woman, or 3 such pairs for that woman, 10 such pairs for that woman, or 100 such pairs for that woman, the amount of birds in the smallest group is valid. To be valid to be offered whether they are brought for the same obligation or whether they are brought for 2 different obligations, whether they are brought from one woman to another or whether they are brought from 2 different women. What is the case of the two groups of offerings being brought for one type of obligation? If the first group of offerings were brought for one incident of a woman giving birth, and the other group of groups were also brought for incidents of giving birth, or if the first group of offerings were brought for the one occurrence in Ziva, and the other group of groups were also brought for occurrence of Ziva, there are cases of both groups being brought for one type of obligation. And what is the case of two groups of offerings being brought for two different types of obligations? If one group was brought for a birth, the other group was brought for occurrence of Ziva. What is the case of the two groups of offerings being brought from two women? If the two groups of birds were brought to atone for this woman by giving birth and to atone for the woman by giving birth, or if the two groups of birds were brought to atone for this woman of the occurrence of Ziva and to atone for that woman for an occurrence of Ziva, they are the cases of groups belonging to both women being brought for one type of obligation. And what is the case of groups of offerings for women being brought for two different types of obligations? If one group of offerings were brought to atone for this woman by giving birth, and the other group of offerings were brought to atone for that woman giving birth by occurrence of Viva. Rabbi Yossi says, two women who were obligated to bring birth offerings who took their pairs of birds for their offerings mixed together with designating which particular birds would belong to which woman, or if they brought together, gave the purchase money for their birds to the Kohen. One who sells birds without designating which money belongs to whom, the Kohen may offer whichever birds he wishes to be a katas, and he may offer whichever birds he wishes to be an olah. Whether they are both brought for the same type of obligation, or whether they are brought each for two different types of obligations. An designated pair from which one bird flew away out to the open air for the world, or to flew to among bird offerings which must be left to die. If one of them died, he must take a partner for the second bird. If it flew to among other birds which are fit for offering, it is unfit, and it renders unfit one bird corresponding to itself. For a bird which flies out of its pair into other pairs is unfit, and it renders unfit one bird corresponding to itself. Okay. And what is our? Okay. Zion. Jewish workers doomed and idolaters sent to borrow of Nesic wine as their wage are permitted to say to him, give us its monetary value, and after it renders their domain is prohibited. If one sells his wine to an idolater, if he sells the price before he measures it out, its payment is permitted. If he measures it out before he sets the price of payment, it's prohibited. If he took a funnel and measured wine into an idolater and its flask and measured into a Jew's flask, it is a wine retainer in it, it is prohibited. If he pour wines from one container to another container, from one to which he poured is permitted, the one in which he poured is prohibited. Nesic wine is prohibited, Nesic wine is prohibited, and prohibits that which it mixes. The smallest quantity, wine and wine, or water and water, prohibits the mixture by the smallest quantity. The following are prohibited, and they prohibit that which they mixed by any quality nectar wine idols, heart pair skins, or an ox which is to be stoned, the egel or rufa, the birds of a mitzvah, the hair of a nazir, the first one of a donkey, meat mixed with milk, the he goat which is dispatched to Azel, and unconsecrated animals that were slaughtered in the temple courtyard. These are prohibited, and they prohibit that which they mix by any quantity. Okay. We are on to Yevamos. Yudala. If four brothers were married to four women and then they died, if the eldest of them wished to perform yibum with all of them, he may do so. If someone were married to two women and then died, conjugal relations or kalitza with one of them produces her co-wife. If one was qualified and one was disqualified, if he's going to perform kalitza, he should do so with the disqualified one, but if he's going to perform yibum, he may do so with the qualified one. If one remarries his divorced wife, or he marries his kalutza, or a relative of his kalutza, he must send her away, and the child of that union is a mamzer, and they are the words of Rebbe Kiva. Now, Chachamim, however, say the child is not a mamzer, but they admit that if he marries the relative of his divorced wife, their child is a mamzer. What is a mamzer? The child of any blood relation with whom cohabitation is prohibited by a negative commandment. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shimon Hatimni says the child of anyone for whom the punishment is karas at the hands of heaven, and halakha follows his view. Rabbi Yeshua says the child of anyone for whom the punishment is death at the hands of the court. Rabbi Shimon ben Azai said, I found this genealogical scroll in Yerushalayim in which was written, so-and-so is a mamzer from a married woman, supporting Rabbi Yeshua's words. One whose wife died is permitted to marry her sister. If he divorced her and she divided, he is permitted to marry her or sister. If she married someone else and she died, he is permitted to marry her sister. If his Rebama died, he is permitted to marry her sister, and if he performed kalitza with her and then she died, he is permitted to marry her sister. Okay. And we're on to Shias. Next Shias is bet. How much manure may be deposited? Up to 3 dung heaps in a beit saw, each containing 10 basket loads of 1 lek each. One may increase the number of baskets, but not the number of dung heaps. Reb Shimon says also the number of dung heaps. A man may set up a field in 3 dung heaps per one bed saw. If more, he must set them out in a triangle, which so says Reb Shimon. But the sages forbid unless he lowers 3 or raises 3. A man may pile the manure into one large heap. The man forbids unless he lowers 3 or raises 3. And if he has little, he may go on adding to it. If Elazar ben Azariah forbids unless he lowers 3 or raises 3 and places it on a rock. If one uses field for a cattle fold, he must erect an enclosure that covers 2 saws. He pulls out 3 saws and leaves the middle one, which leaves him with a cattle fold of 4 bait saws. Reb Shimon ben Gamil says of 8 bait saws. If his entire field was 4 bait saws, he leaves part of it for appearance sake. And if he takes it out from the cattle fold and puts it in his field, in this manner, if those who bring out their manure.
Okay, and we are done.
Got you. Okay, got you going. Okay, good.
Okay.
All right, have a great day. Enjoy. I'll see you tomorrow.